There exists a frequency of self-mastery so intense that it makes others uncomfortable just being near you. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to tune into it. Have you ever encountered that one individual who seems immune to failure? The person who, without fail, rises at the crack of dawn, executes their routine with mechanical precision, and never, ever stalls? While the masses wave the white flag by week 2, they're just getting started. While excuses flow like water from everyone else, they simply act. And what's the whisper that follows them? There's something different about them. It's almost intimidating. Deep within the traditions of ancient Japanese monks lies a forgotten engine that generates this exact breed of unshakable consistency. They called it Guyoji, the art of a practice that fuels itself. Once you grasp its mechanics, abandoning a goal will become a foreign concept. But there's a price for admission. This path demands you annihilate a version of yourself you didn't even know was holding you back. But before we go further, if you're ready to forge an unbreakable will, hit that subscribe button for Winds of Thought, drop a like to lock in your commitment, and comment below what is the one habit you are absolutely determined to build. It tells me you're serious. Let's begin. The story you're about to hear centers on a software engineer named Raphael. On paper, he was sharp, successful, but he carried a hidden fracture. He couldn't make a habit last beyond a 2-week window. The gym, abandoned after a month. Daily meditation, a fleeting experiment that lasted a weekend. Reading, he'd accumulate books, devour the first chapter, and let them gather dust. His life was a predictable cycle. Monday, a surge of motivation. Wednesday, the first whispers of doubt. Friday, total surrender. Sunday, empty promises for a fresh start. He tried every modern solution, habit trackers, reward systems, even a friend to hold him accountable. Nothing worked because he was battling an invisible enemy he couldn't name, the fundamental structure of his own mind. Then he stumbled upon the secret of why Zen monks could maintain a daily practice for centuries through wars and peace without ever missing a beat. And it had nothing to do with willpower. In these ancient temples, a principle governs everything: Guyoji. It translates to succeeding practice without pause. Without pause. Let that sink in. It means that since the year 1240, a bell has rung at a specific temple in Japan at exactly 3:27 a.m. And for nearly 800 years, every single day, the monks rise. Not at 3:25, not at 3:30, exactly at 3:27. Want to know what never happens there? A monk doesn't lie in bed, weighing the pros and cons of getting up. The internal debate simply doesn't exist. Why? Because they've tapped into a core psychological truth. Your mind sorts every commitment into one of two categories: a private intention or a public vow. Private intentions are open for negotiation. They are weak signals. But a public vow? That changes everything. When a monk takes his vows in front of his entire community, he's not just making a promise, he's undergoing a public identity shift. He's not trying to be a meditator, he's declaring he is one. The community becomes a witness, the identity hardens, the negotiation ends. A leading neuroscientist from Stanford, who has spent over a decade studying behavioral reinforcement, discovered something profound. When an intention is made public, the oldest part of your brain interprets potential failure as a social threat. In our ancestral past, losing standing in the tribe could mean death. Your brain still operates on that ancient code. Social failure feels like a threat to survival. This is the lever Raphael learned to pull. He stopped making silent promises and started making public declarations. He took a sheet of paper and wrote, "I am a person who will meditate for 20 minutes every morning at 5 a.m. for the next 90 days. He signed his name. He posted it on his social media. He told his colleagues. He told his girlfriend. Her reaction? "Isn't that a bit much?" His coworkers, "Dude, you're taking this too far." Perfect. Every skeptical look, every raised eyebrow became fuel for the fire. Every morning, when the desire to quit arose, he was confronted not by a private thought, but by the terrifying prospect of having to admit defeat to everyone who now knew. Day 3 was the first true ambush. The alarm screamed. His brain immediately launched its classic counterattack. "You're exhausted. This is unsustainable. Skipping one day won't matter." But the equation had fundamentally shifted. The pain of posting a public failure, of facing his girlfriend's "knowing I told you so" look, was now far greater than the temporary discomfort of getting out of bed. The public declaration had made quitting more costly than continuing. But this victory revealed a new, more difficult battle. Even with this immense social pressure, Raphael was locked in a daily war. His biology didn't care about his online reputation. His body craved sleep. The public declaration had silenced the "if" of the habit, but not the when or the how. That's when he unearthed the monk's second weapon, the non-negotiable time slot. Every single day, you exhaust precious mental energy on the same useless question, "When will I get this done?" This micro-decision, repeated endlessly, burns the very glucose your brain needs for the actual task. You're wasting your fuel debating the route instead of driving the car. Raphael locked in 5 a.m. Not for some romantic notion of sunrise. He chose it because at that hour, the world is asleep. No messages, no emails, no distractions, no excuses. The specific time wasn't about optimization, it was about total elimination. Removing every possible variable that could justify a delay. The first week was brutal. His body waged war. That's the process. You're forcing a new pattern onto a machine built for routine. It will resist. By the second week, something shifted. He began stirring 2 minutes before the alarm. His body was anticipating the coming event. On day 14, a landmark occurred. The alarm rang, and his feet hit the floor before his conscious mind had even processed the sound. No thought, no decision, just motion. Here's the core truth about a fixed time. It's not about finding the perfect hour. It's about removing time as a negotiable asset. When your habit time is variable, your brain makes a new decision daily. When it's fixed, your brain stops arguing with a constant. But Raphael soon discovered a new crack in his armor. The time was fixed, but the activity kept shifting. Some days he'd meditate longer, others he'd do a quick workout. His mind had found a new loophole. Instead of arguing about the when, it started negotiating the what. The fixed schedule had solved one variable, but the practice itself was chaotic. He had eliminated the when, but not the what. And this is where an ancient teaching on rigid forms becomes vital, because it requires you to repeat the exact same sequence every single day until your mind's resistance is completely crushed. You might believe variety keeps things fresh. In reality, variety is the graveyard of consistency. Every time you alter the task, your brain makes another micro-decision. Push-ups or squats, 10 minutes of reading or 20. Each tiny decision is a fissure where your old inconsistent self can seep back in. Raphael locked everything down into an unbreakable ritual. 20 push-ups, 10 minutes of meditation, 10 pages of a book, same order, same timer, same everything. His personal ango, a 90-day period of absolute discipline. Friends called him a robot. His girlfriend found it tedious. They didn't realize that tedious was the entire objective. Week 3, his mind erupted. This is mindless. You're not a machine. You need stimulation or you'll quit. Week 4, something cracked. Not his will, but the resistance. The voice of negotiation became a whisper. By week 6, he'd finish his push-ups before he was even consciously aware he had started. The ritual was running on autopilot. This is the forgotten truth about discipline. It's not about endless willpower. It's about repetition until willpower becomes irrelevant. Your body learns the sequence like a dancer learns the steps. A researcher at MIT, specializing in behavioral automation, explains, repeat a specific action in an unchanging context for roughly 60 to 70 days, and your basal ganglia encode it as an automatic routine. You cease deciding to do it. You simply do it. On day 35, Raphael got the flu. On day 40, an unexpected work trip. These are the moments where the old pattern would have seized victory. I'm sick, it's a rest day. I'm traveling, it's impossible. This is where you've surrendered before, where most people surrender, because they believe practice needs perfect conditions. But the ancient wisdom offers a crucial insight about gaps. A gap, even a single day, is where your old self rushes back in. What saved Raphael when everything went wrong was understanding that practice doesn't demand perfection. It demands continuity. The myth of all or nothing has destroyed more consistency than simple laziness ever could. The thought creeps in, if I can't do the full session, why bother? If I can't do it perfectly, I'll wait for a better day. This thinking creates gaps, and gaps are the doorway for your former identity to return. Study any elite performer. They have rest days, yes, but those are prescribed rest days, part of a larger plan for progress. They are never a surrender to laziness or a lack of motivation. An intentional rest day is still movement toward the goal. But skipping because you're tired? That's not rest. It's retreat. A river never truly stops. In a drought, it may slow to a trickle, but it remains a river. The moment it stops completely, it becomes a dry riverbed, a memory of what used to be. Your practice is the same. The moment you create a gap, you are no longer a person who practices. You become someone who used to practice. On day 40, Raphael found himself at an airport at Fort Oak AM for a cross-country flight. A full day of meetings. The hotel had no gym. The old Raphael would have seen this as a sign to pause. The new Raphael did push-ups in the airport family bathroom. People stared. Perfect. He meditated in the rideshare. He read on the plane. Nothing was perfect. Everything was continuous. This is Guyoji. Practice perpetuating itself. That's when the whispers started. Colleagues said he seemed different. Friends said he was becoming obsessed. Someone actually remarked, "Your level of discipline isn't healthy. Normal people don't operate like that." When you hear those words, recognize them as a signpost. You're on the right track. Normal people have normal lives. You're not aiming for normal, you're aiming for unshakable. But there's one more layer. The unforeseen attacks you can't predict. The chaos that arrives without warning. Your child wakes up sick. Your commute is a parking lot. Your boss drops a crisis on you at 4:55 p.m. These are consistency killers because you haven't decided in advance how you'll handle them. Every unexpected obstacle forces a split-second decision under stress. And in that moment of chaos, your brain will default to the path of least resistance. The obstacle wins, not because it's insurmountable, but because you're fighting a battle with no plan. Zen monasteries have continued their practice through earthquakes, fires, and political upheaval for 1,000 years. How? They don't improvise when chaos hits. The answer is already written. If the main hall floods, they sit in the kitchen. If the kitchen is unusable, they sit in the garden. There's no committee meeting, no debate. The bell rings. The response is automatic. Raphael wrote down every single obstacle that had ever derailed his consistency and pre-solved each one. A concrete plan for rain, push-ups in the garage, house guests, a silent workout in the bathroom, a hangover, which he aimed to avoid, but planned for nonetheless, a minimalist routine of 2 push-ups, 1 minute of meditation, 1 page of a book. For every if X happens, he had a pre-written I do Y. No thinking, no negotiation, only execution. The power here isn't just maintaining the streak. It's the deep certainty that nothing can stop the practice. Your brain, knowing this, operates from a place of calm, not chaos. A Yale researcher who studies decision-making under pressure found that pre-deciding your actions eliminates decision fatigue at the critical moment. Your prefrontal cortex is preserved to execute, not to decide. Day 70 arrived. Raphael's practice was now a phantom limb, an inseparable part of him. He'd sometimes complete his morning ritual with no memory of having done it. His girlfriend's mother came to stay for a week. At 5 a.m., he silently did his push-ups in the guest bathroom. The practice continued. On day 90, he completed his personal Ango, 90 days of unbroken discipline. But a deeper transformation had taken hold. He was no longer the same man. Friends didn't just notice his consistency, they were genuinely unnerved by it. The way you stick to things, one said, it's actually kind of scary. Raphael's response was simple. Good. Because when your discipline makes others uncomfortable, you have finally begun to operate at a frequency they cannot comprehend. Your very existence challenges their excuses. It proves that everything they've labeled as impossible is simply uncomfortable. That's why they'll call you obsessive. That's why they'll plead with you to find balance. They need you to slow down so they can feel better about staying still. But you're not doing this for them. You're doing this because you've uncovered the ultimate secret. Consistency isn't an action you repeat, it's an identity you become. When you install the Guyoji system, the public declaration, the fixed hour, the rigid form, the pre-solved responses, you aren't just building habits. You are dismantling your old self and forging a new one. You stop being someone who tries. You become someone who simply is. And when that transformation is complete, people will look at you and ask, how does he do it? And the answer won't be a strategy. It will be a statement of fact. He doesn't. He is. The question is, are you prepared for this level of change? Because this isn't really about discipline. It's about death and rebirth. The death of your fractured, inconsistent self. The birth of your unbreakable, fearless self. The Guyoji system won't make you a better version of who you are. It will make you a completely different person. Someone others will look at and think, that's not normal. And when you hear those words, you'll know you have finally arrived. If this journey has shifted your perspective, subscribe to Winds of Thought and hit the bell so you don't miss the next step. And in the comments, tell me, what will be your first public declaration? What habit will you forge using the Guyoji method? Remember, the consistency that frightens others is the only consistency worth claiming. If you've made it this far, thank you for your focus. I'll see you in the next video.